Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Anita Alef. I met her in the sauna at the gym.
That's it. It's 2 o'clock in the morning and the phone rings. I answer it and the voice says, this is Grace Sinai and I'm looking for Anita Hall. I said, speaking. Well, Miss Hall, your son, Jameer Hall, has had an accident and we need you to come to the hospital. So I sat on the bed and I thought to myself, I said, Jameer has finally had that accident. He's never been a good driver, even when he first started. I was like, be careful, put your seatbelt on, drive slower, watch that, look at there. But as I sat on the bed, I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel like I was wondering what happened. But something came over me, a peace came over me. I want to call it the peace that surpassed all understanding. I began to get dressed and I was looking at myself getting dressed and I heard my husband, hurry, 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 we gotta go. But it was like, womp, 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 womp. I heard him, but I didn't hear him. We got in the car and I saw myself getting in the car and walking into the front emergency room. And we went into the emergency room and I went to the desk and I told them that I had received a call, and so they escorted me to the family room. And I sat down and the nurse said, the doctor will be in a minute. The doctor came in and he sat down next to me and he grabbed my hand and he looked me in the eye and he said, your son is extremely ill and he needs emergency surgery. He's had an extremely terrible accident. And I said, okay, so can I see him? Well, just for a minute. You can see him for just a minute. So I went to the back and I looked at him and he didn't look like himself. He was bruised, bloody, and banged up and connected to all the machines. And I looked at him, I kissed him, and I said a prayer for him and turned around and walked out. As I was walking out, I ran into the chaplain and she asked me, did I want her to pray for me? Of course, yes. And so she prayed for me, and after she prayed for me, I remember thinking that I had just went to a revival and heard a sermon on Daniel in the lion's den. And Daniel proclaimed that he would be thrown into the lion's den, but his God is able to save him, even if he does not. That resonated in me, that I knew that God was able to save my son, whether he did or not, and that I would still have to go on in faith. So the doctors told me that the surgery would take up to 6 hours. It took 8. And as we were waiting in the waiting room, my husband said we needed to call the family, my sisters, my brother, and my other son. My sons lost their dad very young, and one of my mantras for them was that people are going to come and go in your life, but you're going to have each other always. You are your brother's keeper. And they believed that, and I even dressed them as twins for a while. So, you know, they were very, very close. And so my husband made all the calls, and the doctor came in and said he made it through the surgery, but he was still extremely ill, and that I could see him once he get up to ICU. So when I got up to the ICU, I met the team, the nurses that were going to care for him, the doctors of all the different units, the cardiac unit, the respiratory unit. There were so many, but they were all converging to help my son. And they explained to me the action plan, which was to keep as much positivity around him. He was in an induced coma for 2 weeks, but they explained to me that when you're in an induced coma, you can still hear, you can still sense people. And so my job was to keep the positivity going. And no negativity, no crying, no wah, none of that. So I took on, I said, I can do that. And still I'm walking in the gift that God gave me, which was the peace that surpassed all understanding. Because I didn't understand it. I was watching myself move and talk and everything, but I had no understanding that it was God's peace that was carrying me on the way. My son arrived the next day, my oldest son, Malik, and my brother brought him into the room, and when he crossed the threshold, he collapsed to the floor. And my brother reached down to get him, and I told my brother, no, don't touch him. And matter of fact, can you leave us alone? And my brother left, and I looked down at my son, and I said, you got to stand up. That's your brother. You got to get and clean your face up and stand up, because you and him have each other. Malik stood up, cleaned his face off, stood tall, walked over to his brother and prayed for him, and got into the motion, the action plan, positivity, singing positive, praying positive, reading positive, laughing, long as it was positive. So we continued on. He had some challenges. He had to go back into surgery several times. His injuries were extensive. His spleen had to be removed. His lung was punctured. His pelvis was fractured. His kidney was bruised. His liver was punctured. He had some extremely terrible internal injuries. So we went on for weeks and weeks, and I became very close with the staff in the ICU. We were on first name basis. And so this one particular day when I got to the hospital, Mary, the nurse, said, oh, Anita, I'm so glad you're here. I couldn't wait for you to get here. I'm like, what happened? It was some women up here fighting about your son. I'm like, what? It was like, girl, they was in there arguing. I had to put them out. I said, I got it. Don't worry, I got this. And that day, matter of fact, there was 4 of them in there. My son's very attractive, very handsome man. And so all of these women came out of the woodwork when he was in the accident. And they were running into each other. You know, I'm like, so that day I walked out to the waiting room and it was 4 of them sitting out there, grimming each other. And I made it very clear, you can come, but if you bring any drama, it's gonna be a problem with me. So you can come and visit, but it's got to be positive. Well, as you know, some of that kind of trickled out. One stopped coming, another stopped coming. The months passed. My son was in the hospital for 3 months. In that 3 months, he had fevers, he had more surgeries, but it was so amazing. In that peace that surpassed understanding, I never lost hope. I never felt down. I never thought of anything but positive. And he began to improve. He got off of the main ICU floor to the step-down ICU floor to the main floor. And it was so amazing. When he got to a regular floor, my peace turned to joy. My joy turned to praise. I got more excited and full of gratitude the more he was walking, he was talking, he was moving. And I just began to just be grateful to an extent I can't explain. The miracle of his life and that he's able to walk and talk. Well, he was about to be released from the hospital after 4 months. And the surgical team, 10 surgeons worked on my son that night. And they heard through the grapevine, I don't know how they heard, that he was being released. They came down to his room, 10 strong, because they wanted to see this young man, because they knew how critical his life was even after they did what they did. And the head surgeon said to me, "We've done all we could do. It's up to him and God." Well, I had already known that I was walking in the peace that surpassed all understanding and the miracle of his life. And today, my son is back to work. He is finishing his degree in education. It's only one young lady that stuck it out. She's here tonight. And I just want to say that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. And the miracle is that my son is alive, walking, talking, playing, joking, getting on my nerves. But I'm so grateful for the gift of peace and the miracle of life. Thank you.
Anita Alef.